So why is diversity important? Why is inclusion important? For all those wonderful things that Sim said, right? Innovation, blah, 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 all these wonderful things. But I'm not here to talk about that. That's your homework. That's not why we're here to talk about. What are we here to talk about is a little model that I'd like you to think about from now going forward till the rest of your life. When you listen to the radio, when you watch the TV, this is the model I want you to understand and always remember. At the top is the factual matrix. This is how I understand South Africa and our global issues and challenges. At the top is the factual matrix, the content. So what are some of the issues in the South African space at the moment? Land, right? What else? State capture, white monopoly capital, radical economic transformation. What else? Come. Racism, sexual harassment, gender-based violence, yeah? Education, yeah? BEE, transformation, growth, healthcare, isidimeni, right? All these things, right? This is the factual matrix, the content. And we love this portion. We love talking about the facts. We love talking about the content. We tune into Eusebius McKaiser and we have a 3-hour panel discussion on land, right? And it gets really worked up and we love it. This is so safe. But underneath the factual matrix is the emotional matrix. What do you guys think are the two dominant emotions within the South African space at this point in time? Fear and anger. Anger and fear, we all know it. Anger and fear are the two dominant emotions within the South African space. And none of us are talking about our angers and our fears. So we'll talk about land, right? And we'll have, right, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. But really we're not talking about land. We're actually trying to use land to talk about our fears and angers. But we're not talking about our fear and anger because we're talking about land. So what are we talking about? Nothing. We end up talking about nothing. This is why we're having the same conversations over and over again. Right? This is why we're constantly never finding any resolution, because we keep trying to use all these things in the factual matrix as points, and we think we're discussing something, but really all of these are just proxies or replacements or markers to talk about our angers and our fears. And we really need to stop and start talking about our anger and our fear. And this is really the point in the model that I use and I really believe in, and this is going to sound, no, just go with me on this. Everyone in South Africa, from the whitest white to the blackest black, to be crude, has a shared anger and fear. Right? Shared anger and fear. Now talk about diversity and inclusion, and you'll see all of those angers and fears come up. So you have white men talking about transformation and saying, I don't have the opportunity to say that I'm actually scared. And then we have somebody of color saying, or black female saying, but why are you scared? You white and male in Standard Bank, it's a boys club, you're good, right? And then on the opposite side, we have this white male saying, but you're a black female, you are so good. But really all we do is delegitimize each other's anger and our fear that we hold. Basically, and to use another ailment analogy, it's like I've got a headache and you've got a headache, and me saying, yeah, I've got a headache. Oh yeah, me too. No, my headache's much worse than your headache. No, I'm pretty sure my headache's much worse than, no, my headache's much worse. That is an illegitimate headache that you have. What do you mean it's an illegitimate headache that I've got? No, and that's what we do, right? When can we get to a point where we can just sit down and say, okay, we all have a headache, rightly or wrongly, that we can hold white fear and anger right side by side with black anger and black fear and say that both of them are legitimate. Because I think only when we got to that point, when we can say, all right, and I obviously understand that there's a whole spectrum of race in between. I just use them as binaries. When we can get to that point where we can say, all right, we all have a fucking headache, right? Now we can actually move to the point where we start resolving how it is that we can have and deal with this headache. But first we have to recognize that everyone's headache is legitimate, even if we think it is an illegitimate headache. And we deal with a lot of that. We see it a lot, right? I mean, in terms of the work that we do get a lot of anger and fear from white men who say, I feel like there's no place for me. And how do we say that's illegitimate? And at the same time, black females saying, I feel like there's no place for me. And how do we say that that's illegitimate? We can't. And we need to stop it. So we can just all get to a point where he's like, guys, we're all suffering, we all have a headache. Yes, there's degrees, but it doesn't matter because my headache, how do I measure my headache compared to yours? It's still a headache. How do we get to that point, right? So we need to start talking about our shared angers and our fears. Are there any comments on this or thoughts? Does anyone feel like this isn't something that you can get behind? How do we legitimize somebody's headache when we don't feel like it's legitimate? Yeah?
How do we start?
What's the best way to start recognizing somebody's headache? Just recognize it, right? Just say, sure, you must be really scared coming here talking about diversity inclusion. I'm pretty sure every time you get an email talking about transformation in our numbers, you must kind of cuck a little bit, right? Want to talk about it? Okay, yeah, I'll talk about it. It's really just about conversation.